Welcome to another episode of the Heavy Duty Parts Report. I'm your host, Jamie Irvine. In this episode, we are going to talk about how listening to customers talk about their problems is a great way to identify innovative products and solutions that will solve their problems and challenge the status quo. We're going to see an example of how one machinist solved a common problem with Peterbilts, and we're going to talk about how we need to avoid looking at things through the lens of what is convenient and easy for us and our employees, and look at things through the lens of what is easy and convenient for our customers, doing the hard things well for them, and how that really impacts your business. We've got a lot to talk about in this episode. Let's get started. At the Heavy Duty Consulting Corporation, when we work with our clients, one of the first things that we do is we often do a Prescan Evaluation. This is where we ask a lot of questions and we just listen to the customer as they talk. We often will have a very extended conversation as we listen to what they've done, where they've been, what they're trying to accomplish, the problems they've had in the different aspects of their business. By listening to the customer talk about their problems, this gives us the basis of bringing forth strategies that will help them improve their business. Now, if you've been following what we've been doing at the Heavy Duty Consulting Corporation, you'll know that not only do we do a pre-scan at the beginning of our consulting engagement, but we now do a post-scan at the end where we demonstrate the amount of quote-unquote fault codes we've cleared for the business by listening to their problems, helping them develop a strategy, and then guiding them as they execute on the implementation of that strategy. Now, if you sell products or if you provide services, you can do this too. So if you're a repair shop or you're a parts distributor, especially if you're a parts manufacturer, that voice of customer is so critical to really finding and pioneering innovative solutions that challenge the status quo. All too often, we accept what has just been provided to us, and we don't really challenge that, and therefore we miss out on these great opportunities. And I see this over and over again, and that's why I wanted to have my featured guest on this episode, because I think my featured guest has just an excellent example of how listening to people's problems has led him to developing innovative solutions. And principally, I think we can all benefit from seeing this example. So we're going to take a quick break to hear from our sponsors. And when we're back from our sponsors, we are going to listen into my interview with this machinist who came up with an innovative solution to a problem on Peterbilts. We'll be right back. Are you deferring maintenance because of filter cost or availability? Or worse yet, are you trading down to no-name filters to try to save a few bucks? Either way, you're rolling the dice. The good news, there's a new premium filter option for fleets, Hanks Filtration. If you're responsible for a fleet, you won't believe how much using Hanks filters will save you. But you've got to go to heavydutypartsreport.com/Hanks to find out more. That's heavydutypartsreport.com/HENGST. Head there now. At Diesel Laptops, they go way beyond diagnostic tools. They are your complete shop efficiency partner. From diesel technician training to complete repair information, parts lookup tools, and robust technical support, they are there to support you every step of the way. Learn more and download your free starter pack today by visiting diesellaptops.com. That's diesellaptops.com. HDA Truck Pride is the heart of the independent parts and service channel. They have 750 parts stores and 450 service centers conveniently located across the US and Canada. Visit heavydutypartsreport.com/HDA Truck Pride today to find a location near you. Again, that's heavydutypartsreport.com/HDA Truck Pride, and let the heart of the independent service channel take care of your commercial equipment. We're back from the break. Before the break, we were talking about the importance of listening to your customer and identifying what problems they are encountering and how we can use that information to develop innovative products and solutions. My guest this week is one such individual who makes a living doing this. My guest today is Alan Speyrer, owner of AES Machine. Now, Alan is a machinist in West Texas with over 20 years of machining and manufacturing experience. He manufactures parts for various industries, including the trucking industry. Alan, welcome to the Heavy Duty Parts Report. So glad to have you here.
Thanks. Glad to be here.
So I'd like you to tell me the story of how you started AES Machine. Like, what was the motivator behind that? What were you hoping to accomplish when you started this company?
So started racing go-karts around my 15, 16 years of age. And some of the veteran go-kart racers were machinists. So, I just fell in that whole machining thing and, watched them machine parts and had them machine parts for me and just really fell in love with machining. And then I got to thinking, a lot of the big Penske and Yates and all those big NASCAR, IndyCar companies, well, they also manufacture parts for their particular racing industry, and that fuels their team, and pays for racing. I thought, well, that would be great, So I got into machining doing that, went to a community college for machining and just started machining and racing, and that just kind of snowballed. Still makes some parts for go-kart racing for a company in Arizona, but I haven't raced in a decade.
So that takes me back. I remember when I started off in remanufacturing for heavy duty parts, and I went to college as well. Learned how to use a mill machine and a lathe. I didn't go into CNC. Did you take training for CNC?
Yes.
Okay. So back when I was taking that training, it was all conventional machines, but it's so funny how your passions when you're young will often fuel the direction of your career to a degree. I mean, I was making parts for motorcycles and for Mustangs and anything I could do to save a few bucks, because when you're that age, you don't have a lot of money. So you raced competitively. That was kind of how you got into it. Talk to me a little bit about the role of mentorship with some of those older racers. Like, how important was that to guide you on your career?
Yeah, it was great. I mean, I don't think I would have been interested in machining had I not been around those guys. And, you go to their shop and, hey, can you bore out this cylinder here? We need to rebuild this engine. And okay, yeah, they can do it. And they got all the tools, and you watch the process and you're just like, wow, he really did that, and it didn't take long and that really works. So I'd like to do that, You just get exposed to those things and lights a fire, and you're just passionate about that.
Absolutely. I remember when I machined a set of forward controls and a set of horns to go on the windscreen of my motorcycle. Like, when I installed it, I took a step back. I remember the excitement of I did that. Like, that was in my head, and I figured out a way to make it. And now look at it. It's, done. I can imagine you had the same thing when you were out on the racetrack and your engine was performing and you were winning, and you were like, yeah, that's because I did that.
Yeah. Just look at things a different way and think about it. And, I'll just draw something on a piece of paper or now on the computer and think about it. And then you machine it. And well, maybe it didn't always work the way you wanted it to initially. So you got to tweak this and tweak that. But just because you can draw something on a piece of paper doesn't mean it's going to function the way you want it to function.
Yeah, 100%. So did you come from a family with a lot of people that had mechanical background, or are you kind of like the first in your family to get involved in this?
Yeah, mother's a nurse, father's a pharmacist, so
not really.
Grandfather, he worked for Johnson, Evinrude, and OMC outboards. All three of those outboards are made on the same assembly line, and so he was the head mechanic when back in like the late 70s, early 80s, when you had the bass boat tournaments you see on TV. He was the guy that was there that was working on Roland Martin and Bill Dance's bass boats for the tournament.
So now let's fast forward to where you are today. You've been running AES Machine now for over 20 years. So walk me through your process for discovering opportunities to manufacture innovative parts. Like, how does that usually come about?
It usually comes about when you just meet somebody or you connect with somebody through social media, and they just get to talking about this, and you just got to listen and say, where are they going with this? What exactly do they want out of this conversation? Are they asking for a solution to a certain thing, or what is it? And Sometimes it leads to something. Sometimes it's just a couple of guys talking,
Yeah. Listening for the problem, right? So once you start to hear, hey, I'm hearing this problem and I think maybe I could, do a solution. Let's talk about what happened. Tell me the story of how you discovered there was a problem with Peterbilt hood hinges, and tell us how you came about to discover that problem, what you did about it.
I owe that credit to my brother-in-law who owns a trucking company about an hour away. All his trucks are Peterbilt trucks. And he had bought a brand new hood hinge bolt kit and put it on the truck, and well, you can still move the hood up and down. It still rattles, it still vibrates, brand new kit. So he's like, "Hey, could you make these and could you make them better?" He's like, "Look at this." So I was over there, went over to his house, measured everything, micrometers, calipers, made a drawing, and thought, okay, yeah, we can take this 3-piece kit, make it into a 2-piece kit, add a grease fitting, make it greasable. It took a little trial and error, but it works. It works really good.
So once you figured out the solution, like what was the benefit that now customers who buy this kit get over the original equipment or aftermarket that's been traditionally been available?
So the original part is either made in China or Taiwan. Not to knock those countries. I think manufacturers can get the part they want from those countries, or they can just get average parts. If you want a really good quality part, it costs some money and it can be made anywhere, but the parts you get from the factory is not that good. Machining tolerances are plus or minus a 32nd of an inch. So no matter how hard you tighten down on the factory kit, the bolt and the bushing, it doesn't fit good. There's too much slop there. It's going to rattle. The bushings are polyurethane. They're real cheap and they won't last. They wear out prematurely. So CNC, a better quality bushing and a better quality bolt, adding a grease fitting in there, allow just enough room for grease around these two components so you get a good quality part and it works and it'll last many times longer.
What happens to the assembly and the hood if there's too much movement, too much vibration, and you're using that lower quality part? As they say, you rarely get more than you pay for. So like what would happen if you had that cheaper part on and everything wears out?
Over time, those polyurethane bushings, they just wear out against that steel sleeve that's put over the factory bolt. And then it starts wearing into the hood hinge brackets, which are aluminum. Now you got to replace all of it.
The whole assembly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, and I take some oversized bushings for another trucker who had used a factory component and didn't get it done in time and had some wear. So we had to make some oversized bushings because he didn't want to replace the factory hinges, the factory brackets. It works and he's happy with it. So it should last him a long time like that.
So your brother-in-law gave you the idea, you figured out and kind of tested the solution with him, you got it figured out, and now you've started to sell it. I understand that you're selling these to dealerships, you're selling them to aftermarket parts people and others. When you really think about bringing these solutions to market, like what feeling does that give you as someone who's providing a real quality solution?
I don't know. It's just a great feeling. It's kind of like back when you're a teenager and you're starting to get into this and back to racing and stuff. And you're like, okay, we're going to make this, we're going to modify this, we're going to change, we're going to machine this. And we hope it functions this way. And when it does, then you're like, all right, this is really good. This is really, I don't know, it's thrilling. And to think that I can improve a product and it's going to support the trucking industry and those customers going down the road day in and day out. That's just, it's just a good feeling, I imagine maybe Henry Ford felt the same way when he invented, his first car or, his first dozen cars and got to see them ride up and down the streets, it's just an exciting thing. So I just love machining parts,
Making a difference one part at a time.
I do. Yeah, it's good.
You've been listening to the Heavy Duty Parts Report. I'm your host, Jamie Irvine, and we've been speaking with Alan Speyrer, owner of AES Machine. If you want to learn more about AES Machine, and if you want to look at these Peterbilt parts, go over to aesmachinellc.com. Alan, thank you so much for being on the Heavy Duty Parts Report. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me, Jamie.
Well, I hope you enjoyed my interview with Alan Speyrer from AES Machine. Make sure you go over and check out his website. And by all means, if you sell to people who have Peterbilts, or if you own a Peterbilt, check out his website, buy that product that he has developed. I think that it is an excellent solution to a real problem. Okay, so now it's time for That's Not Heavy Duty. In this edition of That's Not Heavy Duty, what I wanted to talk about is my most recent experience traveling to South Carolina to do field work for one of our clients. As you may have heard, there has been some big time problems with flights over the last few weeks because of a computer update that went bad and really messed up the system. And as I flew down to South Carolina, I heard horror stories of people who had been, on 4 different flights over 2 different days, just trying to get from Texas to LA. I heard one woman who had come from Peru and she was being sent all the way back to South America because her ticket had disappeared in their system. And so I considered it kind of fortunate that I only had to spend 18 hours flying from Edmonton to South Carolina on my way down. At least I made it to my destination on the same day. Now, when I was flying back, there were more problems. One of my flights from Atlanta to Edmonton was canceled, and I was rebooked on a flight to Calgary, which is only about a 3-hour drive away from Edmonton. But they wanted me to wait in Calgary for over 9 hours. So I called the airline, and then I went down to the actual airport to talk to the agents, and then I had to call again and stay on hold for a couple hours. And I got it all sorted out. And so I was able to be moved to another flight so that I was able to fly into Calgary, have a short layover, get on the next flight to Edmonton and meet my family there who were coming in from Vancouver. We were all supposed to meet at the same time, roughly the same time. What happened? I couldn't get that third flight. I couldn't get a boarding pass. They kept telling me it's not a problem, but they couldn't provide me with a boarding pass. And when I finally did get to Calgary, there was only about 45 minutes before the flight left. And I was told by the one airline, the Canadian side of the airline, WestJet, that they couldn't help me. I had to talk to Delta. I went to talk to Delta, and they told me they couldn't help me because it was within the window of 45 minutes before the flight left. Now, at this point, I had no knowledge that they had kept my original flight 9 hours later. The way that they communicated with me, it sounded like I had been moved to that flight and then I had been removed from that flight. So I ended up taking an Uber, and my family met me halfway. It cost me over $300 to Uber. We met up and then we drove home. A few hours later, I'm home and I'm getting a message on my phone that my flights have been canceled and delayed, that the 9-hour layover was going to be 10, then it was 11, then it was going to be a 12-hour layover. So the whole system obviously broke down in this case, but it made me think, and the reason I'm telling you this story is because it made me think of times where, from a consultant's perspective, I've been working with clients of ours, and some of the people working at some of our clients tend to have this attitude of like, well, this customer-centric policy that is being proposed to be put forward is going to generate a lot of work on our end. And so we don't want to do it. And so that's really a problem. Like, we want to make sure that we are doing everything we can to make it easy for our customers. And one of the problems with the flight that I had, it wasn't so much that it got messed up. I understand that there's this major update issue, and these things do happen. If you travel as much as I do, you just learn to deal with it. But what upset me was the attitude of the employees. They really weren't interested in helping me. They kind of had a bit of a dismissive attitude and like, well, sorry, man, like, what do you want us to do kind of attitude. And certainly if we're heavy duty people and we understand the role we play in society as the backbone of society, we would never want to have that attitude. So yes, sometimes to get the customer what they need, it requires extra effort on our part. Sometimes it requires us to do the hard thing on their behalf. But that is the heavy duty way. So having a dismissive attitude or being more concerned about how much effort it's going to require on our part to provide a great customer experience, that's not the heavy duty way. Understanding our why, understanding why what we do is so important, and doing everything we can to make sure our customers in trucking have what they need to be successful. That's the heavy duty way. And that's what we all need to do. And obviously, none of us are perfect. We all at times may slip into that attitude because we're tired, we're overworked, we're frustrated. I get that those things happen, but it's a good reminder for all of us. And we really do need to do our part and really give it our all as much as possible. And if we can, and after you're hearing this, if you can think of things that you could personally improve on, or if your department could make some improvements, or if you're a leader of a company, your company could make improvements, I think it's worth it to take that effort and do what we can. Okay, so thank you so much for listening to today's episode. I just wanted to remind you that next week is Brake Safety Week. It starts on August 25th, goes to August 31st, 2024. And we're going to have a special episode next week dedicated to Brake Safety Week. We already had one a few weeks ago to help people prepare. So make sure that you go over to heavydutypartsreport.com, sign up to our weekly email so you never miss out on any of our content. If you like, listening to the podcast on a podcast player, hit the follow button for free. If it gives you the option to give us a 5-star rating and review, you can do so. And there's a new feature inside of the show notes on your podcast player app where you can actually text us. So if you want to communicate with us and pass along some information, we'd love to hear from you. Finally, if you like watching the video version, hit that subscribe button on YouTube, hit the bell notification so you never miss out. Thank you again for supporting the Heavy Duty Parts Report and listening to today's episode. And as always, I want to encourage you to be heavy duty. Thank you for watching this video. Click here to subscribe to the Heavy Duty Parts Report YouTube channel and click here to watch another great episode.